Stop planting in June until you watch this. Last year, I lost almost my entire harvest. Not from pests, not from disease, not from bad soil, from something far worse. Timing. And the scary part? I didn't even notice it was happening. One crop at a time, everything started collapsing. And by the time I realized what was going on, it was too late to fix anything. If you're planting this June, you might already be making the same mistake. Because there are 9 crops that quietly fail this month. And most gardeners don't find out until the damage is already done. One of these crops is so commonly planted in June, it might already be growing in your garden right now. And crop number 9 has fooled more gardeners than almost anything else. That entire harvests are lost before they even understand what went wrong. Let's start with the crop that tricks more gardeners than almost any other. Crop number 1, spinach. This one still catches gardeners every year. It looks like the perfect June crop. Fast-growing, easy, reliable, until the weather flips. Spinach is triggered to flower once day length hits about 13 to 14 hours. In June, that's exactly what happens across much of the country. Add temperatures above 24 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and the process accelerates fast. A healthy spinach plant puts its energy into growing thick, tender leaves. A June spinach plant does the opposite. It shifts all its energy into flowering. The leaves get smaller, thinner, tougher, and more bitter. But here's what most gardeners don't realize. If you plant spinach from seed in June, it can fail before it even begins. Spinach germinates best in cool soil. Once soil temperatures climb above about 20 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, germination drops sharply. Many June gardens are already sitting at 25, 27, even 30 degrees. So the seeds struggle to even start. The few that do emerge rush straight into flowering. And the harvest disappears almost as quickly as it started. You wait weeks for fresh spinach and end up with a flower stalk instead. What to do instead? Treat spinach as a spring and fall crop. For your best harvest, sow it in late winter, early spring, or again in late August for fall production. That's when spinach does what spinach was designed to do. Grow leaves. Lots of them. And if you think spinach fails fast, the next crop fails for a completely different reason. Crop number 2. And this is where a lot of gardeners get tricked. Radishes. Because they're fast. Really fast. Most varieties go from seed to harvest in about a month. So the logic sounds reasonable. It's only June. I'll harvest before the heat becomes a problem. That's exactly where people get burned. Radishes need cool conditions to build the crisp, dense roots you're planting them for. But once temperatures start pushing toward 27 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the plant changes priorities. Instead of building the root underground, it starts preparing to reproduce. And that's when the trouble starts. The root stops developing properly. Growth becomes uneven. Texture begins to break down. What should have been crisp and juicy becomes dry, hollow, and spongy. Gardeners have a name for it: pithiness. And once you see it, there's no fixing it. But texture isn't the only problem. Heat also concentrates the compounds responsible for that signature radish bite. A little peppery flavor is great. A lot of it isn't. The result? A root that's woody, overpowering, and far harsher than it should be. You pull it from the soil expecting a fresh crunch. Instead, you get disappointment. What to do instead? Plant radishes during the cool shoulder seasons. Early spring or early fall. That's when they stay crisp, sweet, and tender. Not stressed. Not hollow. Not racing toward flowers. Radishes fail in the soil. But the next crop fails before most gardeners even get a full stand of plants. Crop number 3. And this one shocks people every year. Head lettuce. Because everywhere you look in June, garden centers are still selling it. Rows of it. Stacks of it. Which makes gardeners assume it's a good time to plant. It often isn't. In fact, the first problem can happen before the seed even sprouts. Lettuce seeds prefer cool soil. Once soil temperatures climb too high, germination becomes erratic. You sow a full row. A few seedlings appear. Most never do. And even if you get decent germination, the real problem is just getting started. June's heat and long days send lettuce a very clear message. Time to reproduce. Fast. Instead of building a dense, compact head, the plant launches upward. A central stalk shoots through the middle. Growth accelerates. And the harvest you were waiting for starts slipping away. Then comes the part every gardener remembers. The flavor. What should have been crisp, mild, and sweet suddenly turns sharp and intensely bitter. Almost overnight. One week you're planning salads. The next you're wondering if it's even edible. And that's what makes June lettuce so frustrating. It can look healthy, it can look productive, and still be ruined. What to do instead? Grow head lettuce in spring or fall when temperatures are working with you instead of against you. If you absolutely want lettuce through summer, choose heat-tolerant loose-leaf varieties and give them afternoon shade whenever possible. They'll handle the season far better than traditional head lettuce. Lettuce fails quickly, but the next crop takes months to fail. By the time you notice, it's already too late. Crop number 4. And this one hurts. Because broccoli doesn't fail in a few weeks. It lets you invest months before breaking your heart. You water it, feed it, watch it grow. Everything looks promising. Then June heat arrives. And that's where the problem begins. Broccoli needs cool temperatures during one critical stage of growth. That's when the plant switches from producing leaves to forming the tight, compact head you're waiting for. But June often pushes temperatures well beyond that comfort zone. And broccoli notices. Instead of building a dense crown, the plant speeds everything up. The tiny flower buds begin maturing too quickly. The structure loosens. The head starts to stretch apart. And before long, those tight green florets begin turning into actual flowers. What looked like a future harvest suddenly looks like something you'd find in a wildflower patch. Gardeners call this bolting. And once it starts, there's no reversing it. The quality drops. The texture changes. The flavor becomes noticeably stronger and more bitter. Months of effort. Gone. Right when you thought success was around the corner. What to do instead? Treat broccoli as a fall crop. Start seedlings in a cool location now if you want. Then transplant them in late summer as temperatures begin to ease. That's when broccoli produces the tight, sweet, heavy heads it's famous for. And if you think broccoli is sensitive, the next crop makes broccoli look tough. Because broccoli at least gives you a chance. This next vegetable can be thrown off by just a few degrees in the wrong direction. Crop number 5. Cauliflower. And if broccoli is picky, cauliflower is downright demanding. This is one of the most temperature-sensitive vegetables you can grow. Its sweet spot is incredibly narrow. Miss it by much, and things start going sideways fast. Plant cauliflower in June, and the heat puts the plant under immediate stress. Before it has time to build a strong frame of leaves, it starts making decisions it shouldn't be making yet. Instead of producing a large, beautiful head, it often produces a tiny one, sometimes shockingly small. Gardeners call this buttoning. You wait weeks, maybe months, and end up harvesting something barely bigger than a golf ball. But that's not the only way cauliflower fails. Even when a head starts forming, heat can distort the entire process. The surface becomes uneven. The structure starts separating. Leaves push through where they don't belong. And what should have been a dense, white head ends up looking nothing like the cauliflower you expected. The frustrating part? You can do almost everything right. Water correctly, feed correctly, care for the plant perfectly, and June temperatures can still ruin the result. That's how sensitive cauliflower is. What to do instead? Like broccoli, cauliflower performs far better as a fall crop. Give it cooler temperatures, and you'll dramatically increase your chances of harvesting full, high-quality heads. But as frustrating as cauliflower can be, the next crop comes with a completely different problem. Because heat isn't the only enemy. June also creates the perfect conditions for a disease that can wipe out an entire planting before you realize what's happening. Crop number 6. Shelling peas. And this is where June starts attacking from 2 directions at once. First, the heat. Peas are built for cool weather. Once temperatures start climbing, the plant begins struggling to keep up. Growth slows. Stress increases. And the blossoms that should become pods often never make it that far. The plant simply drops them. Think about that. You finally see flowers. You start imagining the harvest. Then the flowers fall off, and the peas never arrive. But heat isn't even the biggest threat, because June also creates ideal conditions for one of the most common pea diseases, powdery mildew. You've probably seen it before. A dusty white coating that suddenly appears on leaves and stems. At first it doesn't look serious. Then it spreads. Fast. The white coating thickens. Photosynthesis drops. The plant weakens. Leaves begin dying back. And the pods that do survive are often disappointing. Smaller, tougher, less flavorful. The entire crop starts unraveling. And once powdery mildew gets established, you're usually playing catch-up. not winning. What to do instead? Grow shelling peas as an early spring crop or a fall crop. They thrive in cool weather and will reward you with sweeter, more productive harvests. Plant them when nature is working with them, not against them. But if you think peas are quick to quit, wait until you see the next crop, because this one can go from healthy and productive to flowering almost before you've had a chance to harvest it. Crop number 7. And few plants frustrate gardeners more than this one. Cilantro. Because when it's good, it's incredible, fresh, aromatic, packed with flavor. But in June, it can disappear almost overnight. Cilantro is naturally programmed to move through its life cycle fast. And once temperatures start climbing, it hits the accelerator. One day you're looking at a healthy patch of leafy cilantro. The next, a tall flower stalk is shooting through the center. The plant has switched priorities. It's no longer focused on making leaves. It's focused on making seeds. And it happens so quickly that many gardeners barely get a harvest before the plant bolts. You plant it. You water it. You wait. Then suddenly it's flowering. The really frustrating part is what happens to the flavor. As bolting begins, the tender growth slows down. The leaves become tougher. The fresh, citrusy character starts fading. And the quality drops right along with it. That's why so many gardeners feel like they're constantly losing the battle with cilantro in summer. The plant isn't failing. It's doing exactly what nature designed it to do, just at the wrong time of year for us. What to do instead? Grow cilantro in spring and fall whenever possible. If you want it through summer, succession sow every couple of weeks in the coolest, shadiest area of your garden. Even then, expect shorter harvest windows. That's simply the nature of cilantro in hot weather. Now I need to pause here, because crop number 8 is different from everything I've shown you so far. In fact, if you know what you're doing, June is actually one of the best months to grow it. The mistake is how people plant it, and that mistake can cost them an entire season of harvests. Crop number 8. Tomatoes. Now before you start typing in the comments, no, I'm not saying you shouldn't grow tomatoes in June. Established tomato plants love June. Warm soil, long days, fast growth. That's exactly what they want. The mistake is starting them from seed. And every year, gardeners do it. They see empty space in the garden. They grab a packet of tomato seeds. And they think there's still plenty of time. Usually, there isn't. Tomatoes have a long timeline. A seed planted today still needs weeks to become a transplant-sized plant. Then it needs time to establish roots. Then time to flower. Then time to set fruit. And that's where June's seed starting runs into trouble. By the time those plants reach the flowering stage, they're often facing the hottest part of summer. And tomatoes have a hidden weakness. Extreme heat interferes with pollination. The flowers look perfectly healthy. The plants look vigorous. Everything appears normal. But fruit never forms. Flowers open, then drop. Open, then drop. Again, and again, and again. The plant keeps trying. The weather keeps saying no. And suddenly you're staring at a beautiful tomato plant with very few tomatoes, or none at all. That's a painful way to lose an entire growing season. What to do instead? If you're in a region with a shorter growing season, buy established transplants instead of starting from seed. If you're in a warm climate with a long season, June can actually be the perfect time to start tomatoes for a fall harvest. The key is understanding your local growing window before you plant. And now we get to the final crop, the one that fails for a reason most gardeners never even think about. Not temperature, not pests, not disease. Light. Crop number 9. Bulb onions. And this one catches gardeners completely off guard. Because the problem isn't heat. It isn't pests. It isn't disease. It's daylight. Most gardeners assume onions form bulbs based on age. The longer they're in the ground, the bigger the bulb gets. Seems logical, but that's not how onions work. Onions follow a biological clock tied to day length. As daylight reaches a certain threshold, the plant receives a signal. Stop making leaves. Start making a bulb. The problem with planting onions in June is timing. By then, the signal is already arriving. Your onion hasn't had enough time to build the leafy growth needed to support a large bulb. So it starts bulbing while it's still small. The result? Tiny onions. Weak onions. Onions that never come close to reaching their potential. You spend an entire season growing what amounts to an oversized scallion. And that's a frustrating payoff after months of waiting. But there's another reason June onions can cause problems. They don't always struggle alone. Research suggests onions release compounds into the surrounding soil that can interfere with the growth of certain neighboring crops. So in some cases, poorly timed onions aren't just hurting themselves. They may be hurting nearby plants too. What to do instead? Start bulb onions early in the season from sets, seedlings, or transplants. That gives them plenty of time to build strong top growth before long summer days trigger bulb formation. And those are the 9 crops most gardeners lose in June without even realizing why. But here's the truth most people miss. Gardening failures rarely come from bad effort. They come from bad timing. I learned that the hard way. Every single mistake on this list didn't happen because I didn't care. It happened because I didn't understand how plants actually respond to heat and daylight. And that's what makes June so dangerous. Not because it's a bad month, but because it looks like a good one. Everything is growing. Everything looks alive. So you assume everything is working, until it isn't. But the good news is this. Once you understand the timing behind these crops, you stop guessing. You stop wasting weeks of growth. And you start planting with precision instead of hope. So if this video saved you from losing even one crop this June, then hit the like button so more gardeners don't make the same mistake. And if you want to avoid the next big loss most gardeners make in late summer, subscribe, because what comes next is even more expensive. I'll see you in the next one.